Hello everybody, and welcome to the Supreme Court Decision Timeline, Episode 8. We will be looking at the years from 1935 to 1955. Taking a look at our current Supreme Court, we have Chief Justice Paul Jones, Justice Kimbrough Stone, Justice Harlan Stone, Justice Edward Terry Sanford, Justice George Sutherland, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., Justice Pierce Butler, Justice Harry Daugherty, and Justice Joseph Rucker Lamar. It is an 8-1 conservative court. How much will that change? Let's find out. In 1935, Justice Edward Terry Sanford, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, Justice Rucker Lamar all pass away and are replaced by Cordell Hull, Benjamin N. Cardozo, and Hugo Black, as well as Stanley Foreman. And President Hiram I establishes the Workers' Progress Administration, but he also vetoes the Social Security Act, so we don't have Social Security, which, depending on who you are, is either a good thing or a bad thing. 1936, we have the Pittsburgh Flood of 1936. The Hoover Dam is completed. The Remington Rand Strike of 1936-37 begins. Back to the Hoover Dam. I don't think it would be called the Hoover Dam, but it'd be called something. Maybe the Johnson Dam. Who knows? President Hiram I establishes the Maritime Commission, and the 1936 vice presidential election, Democrat Vice President Franklin Roosevelt defeats Republican Governor Al Flandin 514-17 to win re-election. In 1937, the Ohio River flood, the Hindenburg disaster, President Hiram I signs the Marijuana Tax Act, and the Panay Incident occurs in this year. 1938, Associate Justice Benjamin N. Cardozo passes away, and he's replaced by Felix Frankfurter by the House. President Hiram I commissions the USS Enterprise, as well as signing the Civil Aeronautics Act, and he also readies the U.S. military for war against Nazi Germany. 1939, President Hiram I declares war on Nazi Germany, this is the beginning of World War II. 1940, President Hiram I vetoes the Selective Training and Service Act of 1940. This would be introduced by Vice President Roosevelt. He'd veto it without a second thought. In the 1940 vice presidential election, Democrat secretary, the secretary under the Wilson administration, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. But Henry Wallace defeats Republican businessman Wendell Willkie 413-118 to become the 28th vice president. 1941, Associate Justice Harry Daugherty passes away, and he is replaced by William O. Douglas by the House. And President Hiram I passes the Lend-Lease Law, and there's also the Pearl Harbor Attack, which directs war towards Japan. 1942, Associate Justice George Sutherland passes away, and is replaced by Frank Murphy by the House. 1943, the Harlem Riot of 1943 occurs. 1944, the Fort Lawton and Agna race riot occurs. A good year for riots, I guess. 2020, it seems like. 1944 vice presidential election has Democrat Vice President Henry Wallace defeating Republican Governor Thomas Dewey 395-136 to win re-election. In 1945, President Hiram I passes away, and Senator Harry Truman is selected as the 12th president by the Supreme Court, and the U.S. enters the United Nations. President Harry I approves the use of atomic bombs against Japan, so Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those bombs are still dropped. And World War II ends after that. In 1946, Associate Justice Harlan Stone would pass away and was replaced by James F. Burns by the House. President Harry I would pass the Atomic Energy Act of 1946. 1947, President Harry I passes the National Security Act of 1947, which creates the NSC. The Great Fires of 1947 also occur. In 1948, President Harry I signs the Marshall Plan, which would give billions of dollars of aid to other countries. And also the 1948 presidential election, as Democrat Senator Alben Barkley would defeat Republican Governor Thomas Dewey and Dixiecrat Strom Thurmond 303-189-39 to become the 29th vice president. In 1949, Associate Justice Frank Murphy would pass away and is replaced by Robert H. Jackson by the House. President Harry I would sign the North Atlantic Treaty, as well as enact the Housing Act of 1949. And going on in 1950, the Second Red Scare would occur, as well as the Korean War. 1951, the 22nd Amendment is passed, but it is different. It's actually the Presidential Primaries Amendment, which was proposed by William Jennings Bryan all the way back in the 1910s and 1920s. He was like, we should have this, and people were like, I don't know, but it's now finally passed as an amendment, as there will be 6 months of campaigning, and then there would be so many months of campaigning, and then the following November we would have a primary election with all states at once, and both parties will decide who the top 2 nominations will be, and they will go off to the Supreme Court in a runoff style election. But it'll be a jungle primary, and the top 2 goes to the Supreme Court for consideration, is what I'm getting at. In 1952, President Harry I founds the National Security Agency. The Korean War ends. And going on to the 1952 vice presidential election, Republican Senator Richard Nixon defeats Democrat Vice President Alben Barkley 442 to 89 to become the 39th vice president. So, the 30th vice president, excuse me. 1953, President Harry I announces the development of the hydrogen bomb. The 1953 Waco tornado outbreak occurs, as well as the ending of the Korean War. In 1954, Associate Justice Robert H. Jackson passes away and is replaced by Walter Maximilian Bastian by the House. In 1955, Justice Cordell Hull passes away and he's replaced by Harold Hitz Burton by the House, And the Geneva Summit occurs between the U.S., Russia, the UK, and France. And finally, before we end this video off, let's take a look at the current Supreme Court. We have Chief Justice Paul Jones, Justice Kimbrough Stone, Justice James F. Burns, Justice Harold Hitz Burton, Justice Walter Maximilian Bastian, Justice Felix Frankfurter, Justice Hugo Black, Justice William O. Douglas, and Justice Stanley Foreman Reed for a 7-2 liberal court. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is the Chaotic One saying, peace.